Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Deadology Podcast from Pencil Hill Studio, New Paltz, New York. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. This is Season 2, Episode 26 of the podcast, and today is July 10th, 2024. And just thinking about July 10th, 35 years ago today, I was in the Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands, East Rutherford, New Jersey, seeing the Grateful Dead that night. Second night of they played the night before. And the thing that I remember most from that day that just sticks with me is Garcia's jam in that Morning Dew. It is awesome. If you get a chance, go to YouTube. There's a video of it, just in a unique and brilliant jam from Jerry that night on what otherwise might have been just like an average night for the Grateful Dead. Definitely a Morning Dew worth checking out. And getting back to this episode, we're going to time travel back to 1980. We're going to Lewiston, Maine, the state fairgrounds, one of the premier shows of that year. It was the last show of the summer tour. And joining me to discuss that is David Davis. He was there, and he has many great stories and anecdotes. I did a Zoom call with him. It was awesome, so I think you're really going to enjoy this. And David's also working on a new book about the Grateful Dead, and he has you guys probably know him from the Grateful Seconds blog. He has an amazing blog, but we'll get to all that on the Zoom call with David. First, I just want to mention this weekend, July 13th, it's a Saturday. There's a Grateful Dead night in Lakewood, New Jersey, minor league ballpark. I think they're the Jersey Blue Claws. It's a Philly minor league, Class A minor league team, and but mostly playing that night. Splintered Sunlight. They start at 6:15. I have no idea what time the game starts. Probably like 7:00. Whenever the Grateful Dead night happens over there, this is going to be my third time there. Everybody gathers around the band. A baseball game happens, but 90% of the crowd is watching Splintered Sunlight, and it's fun, man. The players are out there in Grateful Dead jerseys, which they auction off at the end of the night. And for the third year in a row, they invited me back. I'll be on hand signing copies of my books, Deadology, Dylan and the Grateful Dead, Positively Garcia, a bunch of other ones, Europe 72 Revisited. So I'll be on hand, Splintered Sunlight, fireworks after the baseball game. So it's going to be an exceptional Grateful Dead night. Once again, that's a Jersey Blue Claws in Lakewood, New Jersey. So the featured show, Lewiston, Maine. Just to give you a little lead up before we go to the call with David. So the summer tour, there's 3 shows from this particular tour that I freaking love. It's one of the best 3-night runs, I think, in Grateful Dead history. And it happened in 1980 in the summer. It started, they played 2 nights in Philly, but the August 30th show, unbelievable. Note for note, one of the best sets the Grateful Dead ever did. That first set, they opened up with an amazing Feel Like a Stranger. It was the first time they opened up with Stranger. Amazing Peggio, amazing Cassidy, just like everything they played that night, unbelievable. And it ended with Althea Jack Straw. Now, I rate this the best Althea ever. It's insane. Great Althea. Even a little bit better than the probably more fabled, more revered one from May 16th, 1980, Nassau Coliseum. And then the Jack Straw in the set, ridiculous. Just if you don't know the Philly Spectrum 830-80 show, I did a podcast on it earlier this year, and just find that first set is killer, and great stuff in the second set too. Next night they play the Cap Center. And here it's the second set that's really the big deal. Greatest Story, Uncle John, Sailor Saint, Comes a Time Truckin'. Just one of the great segments you'll ever hear. The versions of Saint, Comes a Time, Best Truckin' from the 80s. that just a combustible indoor East Coast venues, man. And the summer just brought something out of the Grateful Dead on this tour. And they were just getting started because what I believe the best show of the year and the best show of this tour, Rochester, September 2nd, 1980, after a night off, they went to Rochester and played that incredible Ico, the only one, Ico Morning Dew Sugar Mag. And that may be the best Morning Dew, that one. It's just insane. So you have that great 3-night run. Then they played in Providence. I'm trying to remember. Springfield, I think. But those shows definitely weren't on the same level, but they were good shows. And then they finished the tour in Lewiston, Maine. And anyone there will remember this as one of the great experiences of their Grateful Dead career. So now let's bring in a friend to us all, Mr. David Davis. All right, now on the Deadology podcast, it's a pleasure to bring in Dave Davis. He's coming out with a new book soon on the financial history of the Grateful Dead, but most of you probably know him from the Grateful Seconds, an amazing blog he's put together. He went to 81 shows over the years, and it's an amazing blog. You got to go check it out. He's got some new posts on there. But besides his experience and his thoughts on the shows that he saw, he put together an amazing, all these different clips, newspaper clips from the shows. And it's a very cool resource, just fun to go there and get lost. If you got time to kill, and we all deadheads got time to kill to go back to the day. So Dave, welcome to the show. Say hello.
Hey Howard, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's glad to be talking to you. And the show we're going to be looking at today is Lewiston, Maine, September 6, 1980. Before we go there, I'll just mention that Dave's first show is Boston Music Hall, June 9th, 76. He saw 5 of the best 77 shows. He saw Englishtown, Boston Music Hall, May 7th. He saw the New York State run, Rochester, Binghamton, and Colgate, which is one of the all-time best 3 nights. So this guy had some has some. If you're going to go on a gambling binge, you want to bring this guy with you because he's good luck. He caught all these great shows, man, and he caught the Lewiston, Maine show, the last show of the 80s summer tour. But before we get into all that, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the upcoming book you have on the financial history of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, it's called The Economic History of the Grateful Dead. It's basically mostly about how much money they made at concerts, how well they performed relative to other bands in that era during that whole time, all kinds of stories about, college kids promoting shows and really fun stuff. I was able to capture about 3,000 pages from the Grateful Dead archives, and fortunately, the Dead are the only band that ever let their fans have access to all their financial information. So it's a really fun project. I hope to have it out by Christmas.
Yeah, they let them have access to everything pretty much. So it doesn't surprise
I know
that they let the economic access there. But I think that's such a cool way to look at history. It's like it's something that hasn't been done before. When you think of shows, you're not thinking of it's incredibly interesting, but you're not thinking of the attendance. You're not thinking of how much the ticket was. And it's going to be cool that all this information is going to be in one spot, where you can't really access this anywhere. And I know with the way you research, it's going to be an amazing book. So we're very much looking forward to that. And maybe you could take us right to Lewiston, Maine, and give us a little idea of the financial history, and then get into the whole scene and your journey to Lewiston, Maine.
Yeah, well, Lewiston, Maine concert, interesting concert because it was the 4th highest paying concert for the band in their history up to that point.
Wow.
They got paid $100,000 guarantee to play that show. And that wasn't matched again till the US Festival in 82 and the Garden in 82 when the Dead started making more and more money as the ticket prices went up. And so this was the 4th year in a row that I had seen the summer end concert, starting with Englishtown, the Giant Stadium show in 78 on September 2nd. I didn't see the upstage New York show at Hollander Stadium in 79, but I did see the Augusta, Maine show the next night. So I got to this the fourth year in a row. Usually I was late for college by 1 or 2 days. We'd always try to take some newbie who was a freshman who'd missed the first 2 or 3 days of class. That year it was Willis Nall. Me and my buddy Kirk Lilly took him out of school and told him, we're going to go to these shows, but just tell your teacher you got confused, you couldn't find the building. So, and that's how we took him to Springfield and Providence. So I had to put that in there. So when Lewiston comes around, it wasn't even announced until the middle of August. The first time it was in the newspaper in Lewiston was August 21st. According to the documents in the Grateful Dead archive, the show wasn't even on until the 5th of September because wow. the Monarch, which was John Shear's company, forced these newbie promoters to pay the Dead and pay their lights and sound fee and pay Monarch a fee before the show would be officially announced. So it's kind of interesting. I happened to, in the only time in my life I met a member of the Grateful Dead was Phil Lesh in Lewiston on September 6th that day. And he told me that, we're dealing with these new promoters. I hope it all works out. So it's all like fits in.
Wow, there would have been a lot of people up there a little pissed off if that show didn't happen. I get, because obviously a lot of people knew that it might happen. It was going to happen. There had to be. How many people do you think were at the? Well, you probably know how many people were.
Yeah, they had it set up for 35 or 40,000, and 26,127 tickets were sold. So, it was a pretty big concert, but there were a lot of other concerts that were bigger. Giant Stadium was 66,000. English Town 107, even going back as more than 30,000 at Roosevelt Stadium in 74 and in Boulder in 72. So it was a pretty big concert, but it wasn't monstrous.
Yeah, well, Lewiston's out there. Was it like 3 hours from Portland, something like that, or?
No, it's only an hour from Portland. It's like 3 hours plus from Boston. I moved to Lewiston when I was 8 years old. In 1967, so it was just crazy to have the Dead play down the street from my house. It was just that was crazy.
So you just missed the Ali Liston fight by a
year.
That
was 64. So, but this was the second biggest event ever in Lewiston history. So.
Hey, I was there once, man. I know the town just a little bit. I was there once for a Bob Dylan show in 2008. I was in the same auditorium that the Ali Liston fight took place. So pretty cool. All this interesting, in a little town like Lewiston, all this amazing stuff happening. But what was the Fairgrounds like? Take me to that day, man.
Okay. First I want to say rest in peace to all the people that died out at the Fairgrounds last year with the ridiculous shooter that killed a dozen people or so at the bowling alley out there at the very site that the Dead played at. And that makes me horribly sad.
Man. Wow.
But the Fairgrounds was, I don't know, 20-minute walk from my house where my parents lived. It was about 30 minutes from Bates College. I used to go to the harness racing down there when I was a kid once in a while with my dad, and they would have the Maine State Fair there in the 70s. And I remember seeing like Tanya Tucker, NRBQ, and what's that band, Get Down Tonight? Casey and the Sunshine Band all would play at the fair for like $2 or $3. You'd get in and you'd see bands there.
Wow, I ain't kidding you, man. I think I would enjoy Casey and the Sunshine Band, especially back in the 70s. It's probably pretty cool.
It was funny as, I'm like 13 years old or whatever, and they play, and it was that's what I know of the Fairground. And so it boggles my mind that the Dead played there.
Well, yeah, no, it sounds like your Fairgrounds. You're thinking of corn on the cob, cotton candy, throwing axes, whatever might go on at the Fairgrounds, But wow. So Grateful Dead are there. Oh, one other thing which I looked at quickly. Roy Buchanan and Levon Helm were there too, opening up.
Correct.
Wow.
And there's a friend of mine, Dave Widener, who taped that show and a lot of other shows, and taped a lot of Dylan stuff that you should listen to too, his tapes.
Wow.
he taped Levon. So there's two tapes I think out that has Levon. He plays Ophelia at the end, which was sounds great. Sounds like the band, you know.
Yeah.
So
Did he have a little band with him, or was it acoustic? Or do you remember?
I think he played with the Cape Brothers, which
Oh, all
which
right.
who had played in Lewiston before. So
And Roy Buchanan, man, what a great guitarist he was. So, like, hey, when I was into the Grateful Dead, that's all I had ears for. But now looking back at all these, like, you see Roy Buchanan opening up, you're like, geez, well, yeah, that must have been some kind of incredible show for anybody who was hip enough to take it all in. But hey, the Grateful Dead that night, man, 29 songs. It's crazy. I mean, if you include Drums in Space as a song, they just really put it out there that day. So, any stories going there, going into the concert? What was it like?
yeah, okay, I'll tell you. So we're having this party at my mom's house, and the governor of Maine, Jim Lungley, his son Steve, was friends with my sister and his partner Chuck. They had a rafting business. They came by and said, "Hey, the promoter sent us over to go pick up Phil Lesh at the Ramada Inn." And I said, "Oh, let me go." And the governor's son said, "You can take my place." So I went over in the car. We pick up Phil. We had a good time. And we came back. We asked Phil if he wanted to drive a train rather than a car. He
Yeah.
said yes. So it was like that was a tremendous experience for a 21-year-old me, meeting member
That's
of.
that's crazy, man. That would have blown
So
me away. I got to tell you, my almost Phil Lesh thing, man. This is not as enjoyable. You had a real Phil Lesh experience. But I used to work at this mattress place, Sleepy's, in New York City for a couple of years, like a little 2 year stint. And the day before, a day I worked, Phil Lesh came in and bought like a 3,000 bought a $3,000 mattress at this store. Like I could only imagine if I'm sitting there and out of nowhere Phil Lesh walked in and was shopping for a mattress. But that's what happened the day before I worked there. And some girl
that's crazy.
had no idea what he was. But I like your story better, man. Yeah, I'd rather be in the car with him on the way to Lewiston, Maine. That's wild, man. I'm glad you didn't tell me about that before we
Yeah,
before.
so we drive by my house and I go, "There's where my mom lives." And he's like, "Oh, nice house." Phil was just the nicest guy. And he was, he wasn't on the wagon in those years. So,
Awesome. So, did you go with you must have went with some local friends to the show and
oh, yeah. So I have a lot of buddies. Like I have a friend, Jim Rue, rest in peace, who died on 9/11 on the second plane, crashed in the towers. But this was the last show I ever saw with him. And he also went to the first show I ever saw with him. We went to like 15 shows during 76 to 80 period.
wow.
And I also went with all my buddies, Liza and Charlotte and Arnie and Harriet, who was my girlfriend at the time. And Harriet's photo, because Jay Blakesberg was there, it was one of the first days he ever shot. Harriet's photo I saw when I was at the Fare Thee Well shows in Chicago in 2015. And there she is. And then so I contacted Jay and let him know this girl's name was Harriet King in 2015. And it was pretty great that he's
Wow.
in one of those famous pictures that he did. So
Well, yeah, Jay's that was kind of like the beginning for him, and he's taken a lot of important photos since then. He's a great photographer, a good guy. I think he did the shot for the cover of my Dylan and Dead book.
oh
Um,
man,
yeah,
I
that
hope he
that
gave you a good price for that.
yeah, he did, man. Yeah, it was reasonable for a professional, top notch photographer for sure. And hey, so you're in the
Oh, well,
you're in the fair. Go ahead.
let me tell you one more thing.
Sure.
This is a crazy thing about this show. So John Shearer and Monarch are promoting all the Dead shows on the East Coast, and then and outside past the Rockies, it's Bill Graham and a guy named Fay in Colorado, Barry Fay. They promote the shows. And for this show, Monarch did not promote the show. It's very unusual because starting in 76, when they were hired by Richard Loren, who was the manager of the Dead, for 20 years, Monarch's always so professional. I have a woman named Amy Pollan who worked for John Shear with the Dead, and they're always making money. They always know how many people are going to show up. They always keep the expenses right. But for this
I
show,
always seen Monarch on the Ticketron tickets that I have
oh
for
yeah, sure.
day. Yeah.
For a 20-year period, they either co-promote or promote all the show, like 80% of the shows. And This show was promoted by a local guy from Maine and a small company in Albany, New York. But they also had to come up with like 100 for the dead, 19 for the lights and sound, 10 more. They had to come up with $129,000 before the show in order for the show to happen. So there's a guy, I forget his name, is you can look on the poster. It's the first name above the dead is the guy's name. Let's call him Richard. I think that's his name. And so uh, I never noticed this, but when I was researching my book a couple of years ago, I decided to like Google this guy's name. And I found this document with this guy and the Grateful Dead, and it's called Tax Evasion, Drug Trafficking, and Money Laundering as They Involve Financial Institutions. It was a congressional document from 1986. And I go in there, and it turns out this guy whose name's on the poster, he's involved with these other guys who had a business of flying in marijuana in little Piper and small jets into facilities in Maine, because Maine had 200 border crossings with Canada that no one was at, and they had these 60 airports, little airports that little private jets would fly into. So apparently, what if not the biggest, but one of the biggest New England drug rings smuggling in marijuana financed this concert.
Wow. A little Sopranos Maine style here.
And the funny thing is, in this 1986 document, they said we invested in some concerts and stuff, and we lost about $125,000.
Wow.
Now, when I do the analysis, the financial analysis on this concert, because I have the contract, I know I have the settlement of how much people bought tickets, et cetera, et cetera. It shows me that the promoters lost $95,000, which is highly unlikely in any John Shear. The John Shear concerts all made money. The Dead would make money, the band, the promoters would make money, blah, blah, blah. Everyone. And so for the promoters here to lose $95,000 is like total anomaly.
Yeah,
Never
the
used to
loss for them
happen.
was a gain for somebody else.
Yeah, but then I start looking into, because then I get a little bit like suspicious. I look at some of their expense lines, and like you can tell when you look at, they charge rent for concerts, and the police and security, and the guys wearing shirts, and all the stuff like that for a concert. And here they have these extra line items I've never really understood, like $15,000 for promotional consulting. What the fuck's that?
Yeah.
So it's like, so I really don't understand exactly where they were washing money through this thing. Did they really lose money? I don't even know. I mean, I can't even tell. Somebody lost a bunch of money, but I don't know if it's 50,000. I don't know if it's 100.
Yeah,
So
it sounds like Jerry Garcia band at the Roseland or something. And so, wow, and the Westies are involved. But hey, it's strange things happening in Maine, but it didn't affect whatever happened that day.
not at all. Not at all. This is just total. This is totally fun for my book to write about. And again, I don't know what happened. Whatever.
Oh, it's great, man. This is fun for my audience to hear for sure. Thanks for bringing it all into us.
No problem.
Hey, you're in Maine. What time did the Dead come on? Is it late afternoon or?
Let's see. The show started at 1. I think the Dead came on about 5, and because I know Shakedown occurred right at sunset, which would be about 8:30.
And that's the actual Shakedown Street set too.
Yeah. Set 2.
Hey, so so they open up with Alabama Getaway, man. Go to Heaven. The great thing about this concert, they bring in all the songs you want to hear from their past and the new stuff, and it's like mellifluous, man. It's just a perfect intertwining of their music. So the Getaway is smoking to start the show off. Getaway, greatest story. How is the show to you when they opened up, man?
Well, everything, okay. This isn't the best show I ever saw, but it's my favorite. Probably my favorite, just because like I knew 50 people there, and I'm high from meeting Phil and all these things. And but they basically bonused everything, or did it so like, of course, you open up with 2 songs like that, it's like, wow, that's cool. But then they play Sugaree. I mean, it's like they have two openings. They have two songs open the show. So that's the thing that really got me in it, and you'll see that threaded through the whole show.
Yeah, it's definitely a hotter getaway than usual. Garcia was pumped up for the show. So, hey, before we talk about the Sugaree, let's let the Deadology listeners hear a little bit of the unbelievable Sugaree from Lewiston, Maine. State Fairgrounds. that was the second instrumental. Garcia goes off on that, man. Great stuff. It just like they were in such a great mood. It's incredible, but really for me as a listener, the peak of the show is right there. The Sugaree is one of the best of all times. So you got the first jam very good, and that second instrumental crazy. Do you remember it in the time? I'm sure you've listened to it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and like listening to it again in the last 2 days, all the tapes that are like either Matrix or Audience, because there is a soundboard of the first set, but the Matrix and the Audience have such a feel and a tone, and like it, and then you on top of that, that's like my favorite Sugaree since the '77 one. So I mean,
Yeah,
what can you say?
it's up there. It's funny that you mentioned that. It's such a great Sugaree. Those first two solos are insane. I got it as my fourth favorite. One of my top three is a show you were at. You were at Hartford '77. So once again, what I'm saying is like if you want to have a good luck person with you, if you need like to bring somebody with you, this is the man to speak to because he was there in Hartford for that May 28th '77 Sugaree, which is one of the best. That's my top three with Lake Placid and the
Yeah,
Fox Theater. Yeah,
and also with that Hartford one was the third song of the set, and it
yeah.
also was "Birth of Good Love" and into Sugaree. Like,
A two-song combo. It's same thing. And the second solo is the killer solo. Usually the third solo would be the killer on the Sugaree. But yeah. So uh, very much it must have been a flashback to Hartford for you, man, because you've been there before seeing a great Sugaree. But this,
but also it's just that the tour enders, Lewiston, and the two that I saw in '77, the tour ender Hartford and the tour ender in Binghamton,
that's
November 6th. Those were always so hot shows.
yeah.
I think the Dead a lot of times would do that on purpose, just be really hot or extend the show or something like that on those end of tour shows.
It's funny. It was one way or the other. It was either they killed it the last show that there was never a mediocre show, or they were too tired and they mailed it in. Like one of the best tours I ever caught was October '83, and I wrote the book The Grateful Pilgrimage about it, and it was such a great tour to me. But the last show at Syracuse was a letdown after such a great tour. They were just exhausted or whatever. So is it one way or the other? Either they hit a home run or they bombed the last tour. It's like let's get out of here, let's go home and rest. But hey, they definitely delivered this night in Lewiston. They went all out. Just with 29 songs. It's crazy. So the show is rolling along. You got the great Sugaree. It kind of settles into a typical show: Uncle, Mexicali, Tennessee Jed, and then they go back to heaven. Feel like a stranger. Any thoughts on that one? It was
Oh yeah, oh of course. Okay, so I just saw 20 shows in '79, and I saw a lot of those. Like I saw the first Althea, the first Lost Sailor, stuff like that. In Oakland, the first time I was in California, in August of '79. But by '80, especially by September '80, Brent is so in with the band, and they're so in, and like Feel Like a Stranger. Sometimes it's the first song, it could be the last song, it could be the first song of the second set. But here it was like right in the middle of the first set. And I used to love when the Dead would put an unusual song like that. I remember that December when I was in Oakland, they played China Rider at fourth and fifth song and New Year's Eve. It's like that kind of a thing. And I listened to that song like twice today because I just love how they play it that day in Lewiston.
yeah. No, it's interesting. That Garcia starts off hot, then it kind of hits this point where Brent's doing stuff and they're kind of reorganizing. Stranger and Shakedown were like very unusual in that way, where either they hit 100% all the way through, or they would kind of, would be. This one's really good. They keep trying, but it doesn't have like a regular flow to it. But it's I thought it was a great version.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, one of my favorite that I go back to.
Yeah, no doubt. So Stranger, then there must have been a mob scene. Take a Step Back is the next next thing that comes to. Do you remember the take a step back moment?
Yeah, because I re-listened to it again. But I mean, I never was really close in Lewiston. Even though in Lewiston you could get close if you wanted to. You could get close. as close as you wanted. It wasn't like so, because there's probably room for 40 or 45,000 there. So, but I was way back, so I was like, I don't have to worry about this. But it's just, it's just fun when they play that, because back then it was always made more exciting show when they played Take a Step Back.
Yeah. They always either a great song came after or before. It was Take a Step Back. It's always a great show when that's happening, well, for whatever reason. And the first set rolls along, that pulling out all the punches, Friend of the Devil, and then going back to Go to Heaven, Far From Me, Rooster, which is a new song, and then the China Cat, which really kind of stood out when I was listening to this again. How do you feel about that?
Okay. Rooster. I always liked, but I don't care about the slide stuff and issues and stuff like that. That was always good. Okay, so already played 10 songs, and then they go into China Rider, and then they add a bonus song on top of that.
Yeah.
But the China Rider, when I listened to that back today, was really sharp. It was really, really good. They had only brought it back at Binghamton in '79, so my first 35 shows, I never saw China Rider, but now they're playing it pretty consistently, and that was a really sharp, good version.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Let's check out the China Cat jam. I really love when they go to the crescendo, Garcia's just ripping, and Phil is wild on this one, man. He's just feeling carpet bombing the whole thing. So let's check out a little bit of that China Cat. Great stuff in Lewiston, Maine. Promised Land closes out the set. So once again, the enormity of the show, just they're giving you everything, man. It's like there are no shortcuts. You got Buchanan, Levon Helm before. They could have left. They could have done a short show. It's the last show of the tour, but the first set's enormous, and the second set's just as enormous as well. So we open up with Shakedown Street, Sailor, and then Go to Heaven, Sailor Saint, Althea. What was going on? How'd you feel as the second set rolls along here?
Okay, so already they played 13 songs in the first set, and there's so many good highlights there. And this is like, 4 songs in a row. It's not an LSD version. It's an SLSA. I like, because all those shows in that era, like there was a show in Springfield, they did like a Miracle and a Shakedown, and here they're just putting together all the new songs with Shakedown, and it's just like I loved all these songs. I didn't like it as much when later they would play Lost Sailor into Sane into drums. But as at the end of the first set, or in the beginning of the second set, in that area that I call the middle of the show, those 4 or 5 songs that they would play at the end and at the beginning, this was just like they already played China Rider, and then they put all this in. I mean, it's just like you're 17 songs in and they haven't started the jam.
Yeah, crazy, man. It's just such a incredible evening, man. So the shakedown, Garcia came out smoking on it, and uh, the Sailor Saint good. The one from there's Cap Center 831, the awesome Sailor Saint, and then you got the Althea from Philly Spectrum August 30th. So when I hear this, sometimes I have to, in my mind, I wasn't there. I have to compare it to these. So those were a little better, but these are great. I love the Althea here. Just the ending jam didn't hit on the same high note as the one from Philly, which is the best ever. But hey, great Althea. And then comes the big sandwich, starting playing, man, playing in the band. Take us to Lewiston, Maine.
Okay.
44 years ago.
Now, playing into Uncle John's band, because they didn't bring Uncle John's band back right away after that. They went fishing in 75. It took a while, started playing it a bit in 77 and played more in 78. But they hadn't really been playing in the band into Uncle John's band, although they did it at that show in Boulder on June 8th.
Yeah.
I think they opened the show playing Uncle John's band, playing in the band.
15th anniversary, yeah.
Yeah, but this was really more of a 73, 74 thing. Yeah. And in a second, when they go back into it, I'll give you some more insight.
Yeah. The Uncle John's is really, the playing is short, but it's very hot. Uncle John's is great. The Uncle John's, you said they brought it back. The date was 79 at the end of 79, Oakland Auditorium, and that's maybe the best version of Uncle John's.
Oh yeah. You're right. They hadn't been playing it, and also there's a really beautiful little piece of tuning that goes into playing in the band that you shouldn't miss in the show. It's like a 1 or 2 minute tuning.
Excellent, man. I probably heard it, but I didn't pay close attention to
it.
No,
go back go back and listen to that 1 or 2 minutes. It's like one of the best little. You kind of know they're going into playing in the band, but it's a sweet little jam.
So. Sometimes those things are the best, man. Like when they do a little tune up before shakedown, then they launch into it, and it's just like that little tune up before just builds the anticipation.
Yeah.
So you get playing Uncle John. Uncle John's was great in 1980, man. They really got a hold of it and kicked ass on it. Then after drums, we get Not Fade Away into Wheel, and you take it from here, man.
Okay.
How is it out there, man? Fucking people must have been going nuts because they just keep playing these great songs, and there's no end in sight.
Well, I just want to give shout out to when they did playing in Uncle John's. I think it was 82 at the Greek. It might have the first night might have been 81, where they do 20-minute. The Uncle John's into drums is 20 minutes. It's phenomenal. You should check that one out. And anyways, drum space, and then this little sandwich piece of Not Fade Away Wheel is short. It's like 10 minutes. It's short. It's kind of like they're going home at this point. And then they go back into Uncle playing in the band. Now, I consider the peak of the band when they played the Wheel, playing Uncle John's band, Morning Dew, Uncle John's playing, which they did in 73 twice and once in 74 at the Cow Palace.
I just got to interrupt you for 1 second. I caught that in Augusta in 1984. It was sick, man.
Well, no, you didn't quite catch that.
Yeah.
Because the one in Augusta wasn't playing in the band into Uncle John's band and then back Uncle John's into playing.
Yeah, it was Uncle John's drum space. Uncle John's playing Morning Dew, or the other way around, playing Uncle John's.
Yeah. It had a Dew in there, but it wasn't the whole cycle.
Yeah. What wasn't a natural loop.
No, it's tremendous, and it's in the 30 Trips box set. It's just tremendous, that Augusta Maine show. But the only time the Grateful Dead ever playing into Uncle's, played a bunch of songs and then Uncle's into playing, was those 3 famous shows in 73 and 74 and Lewiston. It's the only other time. So, I mean, it made this really special. There's only when they playing into and Uncle into that thing. So
Yeah. And the return was great, man. I was listening to it. It was phenomenal. And the amazing thing, you're listening to that Uncle John's, the plane is smoking. And I'm not looking at the set list. I'm thinking playing the band. That's it. It's over. Then they
yeah,
break into Sugar Magnolia. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, it's
that's a
amazing,
bonus.
man. Yeah.
Everything's a bonus. There's an extra song, there's an extra first song, Sugaree. There's an extra I Feel Like a Stranger. There's an extra playing at the Promise at the end of China Rider.
Yeah.
There's
When you get in these great shows like from 77 where they end with the great playing loop, like the Fox Theater and all that stuff, it ends after playing in the band. They don't do Sugar Mag after this show. This is why people are so insane about this Lewiston show, and they just kept coming. It was like, we're breaking it all out and we're not stopping, man. The Sugar Mag is killer. Great Sugar Mag after playing. I was told I wasn't even, no way I was expecting that. And then a double encore.
again, they don't just do one song; they do a bonus song. So
Yeah.
every stage, maybe it was my state of mind at the show, which was my normal state of mind at all those Dead shows. That was like, oh wow, but this is so great, but oh, that was so cool, and that's the last show I ever saw on the East Coast.
Incredible,
So
man. So one more Saturday night and broke down Palace for Lewiston. They did it all. Hey, Dave, we probably have about 20 seconds left on my little Zoom thing here. I don't. David Davis, great job. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Can't wait to have you back when your book is published and we could discuss the financial history of the Grateful Dead, but amazing stories from the Lewiston. And what a great experience that must have been for anybody who was there. It was religion, just you're out in Maine, Roy Buchanan opens, Levon Helm, and then the Grateful Dead just give you everything they can, all those tunes, Go to Heaven, all their classic tunes, the legendary Sugaree in the third spot. Such a great night, but the tape can't even capture the majesty of what it must have been like to be there. So thanks for joining us, David, and we'll be back next week. Not sure. Deadology podcast never rests. Not sure exactly what show I'm going to go to. I have a bunch of things in mind, but that's the beauty of the Grateful Dead. I could do this show forever. for the rest, however long I live, I'll never run out of ideas or shows to talk about. So everybody, thanks for listening. My website, tangledupintunes.com. You get all my books there. And once again, July 13th, 2024, this Saturday night, Grateful Dead night, Blue Claw Stadium, Lakewood, New Jersey. I'll be there. And the Entertainment, Splintered Sunlight, great band. Hope to see you all there. Have a great week. Peace out.